international affairs editor, Kethevane Gorgestani. Kethevane, now this is the end of a process that really began in 2019. Talk us through how we got here.
Yes, in 2019, you had these mass protests in Chile that brought thousands of people on the streets. Sometimes they were violent, and the main call was more equality for Chile. And at the time, they decided to have a referendum on whether or not to have a new constitution. Back then, in 2020, there was a resounding yes to change. But over the next few years, you saw that while Chileans were agreeing on the need for change and to get away from that Pinochet-era constitution, they didn't necessarily agree on which path to take. So first, in 2022, you had a more progressive committee that drafted a very progressive constitution that focused on indigenous sovereignty, women's rights, environmental issues, gender equality, things like that. But that was rejected by more than 62% of the population. So then you had a more conservative committee that decided to draft another constitution. This is the one that they voted on, but this one was much, much more conservative than the previous one, and even more conservative, some say, than the current Pinochet-era constitution, deepening free market, rolling back abortion rights, strict immigration rules, things like that. And so a lot of people voted against this one, like the former president, Michel Bachelet, who said, I prefer something that is bad to something that is worse. And so basically, after 4 years and several votes, we're back to square one with that existing constitution, and both sides agreeing that for now, at least, this constitutional process is done and they'll just have to stick with the one they have.
So could there be some kind of political fallout from all of this for the president?
Well, it's actually, in a way, a little bit of a victory for Gabriel Boric, because if this new conservative constitution had made it through, this would have meant that this left-leaning president would have had to spend the remainder of his term trying to enact laws that fit with this conservative constitution. Instead, he's going to be able to go back to actually governing. That's what he said. We have other priorities to focus on now. He spent the first part of his term really bogged down by this constitutional process, and that has really weighed on his approval ratings. Basically, after the first 100 days, his approval ratings plummeted, and they've been pretty much hovering around 30%. And people are criticizing his government for not going through and delivering on all of the promises that he had made. For example, pension reforms. He had also promised more social programs. There's also a really huge rise in crime in Chile. There are scandals in his cabinet. So all of that has bogged down his administration. And so he's looking at this vote to sort of have a restart for his administration going forward. And there is a little bit of a defeat in the way that he was seen as a sort of new left-wing type of president by the South Americans in general, a young, more progressive person. He's going to have to sort of work a little bit more in the center if he wants to continue to deliver in the remainder 2 years.